Hey everybody, welcome to the program. Today I have a very special guest here in the Vinyl Pad, Robert Landau. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking about his book, Rock N Roll Billboards of the Sunset Strip. Now this is an awesome book. And it's not just a picture book. It's a mini history lesson on this forgotten art form.
Well, it's not only a slice of history that's never been told before, but it's an incredible album of really artistic images that capture a unique period in the history of rock and roll and the history of LA. So I think people who are unfamiliar with it will find it a real treasure trove.
It blew me away, to be honest, when I heard that there were hand-painted billboards advertising these iconic albums.
They'd be up for a month and they'd paint them over with a new image. So luckily I was there and took pictures of all these things, but it was really pretty much a disappearing art form from the minute it went up.
This is no longer done.
No, it's no longer done, first of all, because everything's digital. But even then, there were printed posters that you'd see them slapping up in sheets. But the state of the art for billboards up until digital came along was really these hand-painted billboards. They had a look unto themselves. They had this kind of sheen and a quality to them. And in the industry, the billboard industry, they were referred to as spectaculars because they were sort of reserved for places like the Sunset Strip or maybe Times Square in New York or Westwood. But those were really the elite of the outdoor advertising industry.
How did this even come about? Take us back.
Okay, let me take you back. I was lucky enough to grow up in a family that really was into art. My father was an art dealer. He had a gallery on La Cienega. This is back in the 50s and 60s. We had a lot of art in our home. I had a good feel for visuals, and I liked to draw. And then at some point, I got interested in photography and realized that I could take pictures and be much quicker than sitting there and drawing. Age 16, my folks got divorced. My dad moved up to an apartment above the Sunset Strip, and I went up there to live with him. And I'd go out with my camera and walk down to the street, and there would be these tremendous billboards, and sometimes I'd see the guys installing them. So, I just started taking pictures, and at first I'd just, shoot whatever caught my eye, and then over time it became a bit more of an obsession. I really wanted to shoot as many as I could. And once a month I'd invite my friends up who didn't live in the area, and I'd have a slideshow. I'd project these images on the wall. And that, to me, was it. That was the end use. And I had all these pictures of these billboards. They were in sleeves. I'd put them in plastic sleeves and had put them all away. And then maybe 5 years ago, somebody asked me to do a talk about LA showing pictures called Disappearing Los Angeles. And so I put together 100 pictures, and there were maybe 20 of these billboards. There were some storefronts. There were signs. There were other things in LA. At the end of the talk, every question was about the billboards. And what I found out was that people not only in other cities and other countries, but in LA had no idea that this whole period of art had happened in LA. And a lot of people would go up there once in a while. They'd go to a club, so they'd see one. But not too many people had the experience I had, which was to see hundreds of these things and realize that there was this kind of art form going on. So I put the pictures together and went to a publisher, and they liked the idea, and that's sort of how the book came about. What this book really shows, this art form was really an art form of art directors. These billboards were adapted from album covers. I mean, the album cover was really an important art form in that period because, there was no internet, there was no TV advertising. And so when the Beatles or somebody came out with a record, you learned about it from the album cover. The picture, first of all, the image, and then the information. It was really an important thing. And so the guys who were entrusted with designing these things were like the top art directors, designers, photographers, and in some cases, fine artists like Andy Warhol did a billboard for the Rolling Stones. But the art of the album cover became adapted to the art of the billboard. So I tried to credit as many of the people, even though the billboards themselves were not credited. We tried to retrace, who the artist was who came up with the concept for these album covers and credit them in the book. Those are really the unsung heroes of this book. They're the stars. They're the guys who created these fabulous images that sort of stick in your mind.
And what I like about this book is it's not, granted, if it was just a picture book, it'd still be awesome, but you went a step further, and it's a mini history lesson. You basically learn in detail what we're talking about.
I thought it was a little piece of rock and roll history that very few people are aware of. And so I went back and I tried to talk to as many people for the book as I could who knew about it. That was people like Lou Adler, a record producer, and Jack Holtzman, the head of Elektra, even some of the artists who were on the billboards. So I tried to really get a sense of, why that happened at that time and what it meant in terms of, history of rock and roll and Los Angeles Sunset Strip landscape.
Until you see the pictures, you just have no idea the scope of what was going on here.
What I loved about these is that they were clearly not too worried about making money on these things. It wasn't about selling records. It was about, for the record companies, showing the artists that they believed in them. And for the artists, it was about sort of, just getting the word out to the industry and kind of crowing that they had a new record out. So this image, like the Beatles' Abbey Road and several others, they appeared with no advertising copy. Some of them, you had no idea what they were selling. Some of them are really obscure. There was one for a Tommy musical, and the billboard was just these two giant chrome pinballs with eyes on them, and they kind of glared down from the billboard. The people driving by were like... stopping in their cars and what the hell is that? That was the unique thing about these. And it sort of transformed the Strip for a while into almost like a drive-through art gallery. Because here were all these fantastic hand-painted visual images and no advertising copy.
And you mentioned it was kind of a one-up kind of mentality between the record labels.
Yeah, they were all trying to outdo each other. Yeah. It became a little bit, I'm sure there's a lot of ego involved. It meant a lot to them. It probably didn't mean that much as a marketing thing in terms of actual... getting extra people to buy the record who weren't going to anyway.
One of my favorites is the wall. Just the whole idea that they would reveal it over time.
On the Sunset Strip, it was a lot of people in the entertainment industry. So they knew the same people would travel there on a daily basis. So they'd put an image up and then slowly over time change it a little bit. So you're driving by one day and it's a brick wall. And then a couple days later you're driving by and they've peeled a couple bricks off and there's the start of a design underneath. And then over the course of a month, they'd reveal that it was a Pink Floyd record for the wall. But, those were the kind of things they were doing. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay. So how do we get the book?
Well, if you're wandering up and down Sunset Strip, one of the few last great remaining bookstores is up there, Book Soup. They've been a good sponsor and carried the book.
Awesome.
But as there are less and less bookstores, it might be easier for people just to go on Amazon and find it. It's available there. It's published by a company called Angel City Press. They also have a website. You can check it out there. So the book is available.
And you have a website.
I also have a website. rockandrollbillboards.com.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And can we look at more pictures on that site?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can get a little bit more of a sample. And
yeah.
Great.
But, I'm old school. The best way to look at pictures is in a book and to hold the pages, and I don't think a Kindle or any of those things is going to do justice to a really good picture book. Put it on your coffee table book and pick it up and look through it. And it's a good read, too, as you mentioned. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for being on the program. I really appreciate your time. This is a fantastic book. I encourage you guys to go check it out. Check out his website when you can. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.